Hi there guys, in this video I want to explain what's been going on with the upstairs project in 2016. Before I explain that, I need to go back to the 2005 project and explain what was involved with that. So back in 2005 we did do a massive refit of the upstairs. The upstairs is a conversion of a bungalow property. Obviously I think we designed the property to do it later on, but it was about a year or two after the property was built, about 20-30 years ago, that we converted the upstairs. But in 2005 it did need a complete overhaul. So this is how things were in 2005. This is how it was, the sort of plan. So it was to split the upstairs into two areas. Area 1 of the bigger area, which is going to have the AV equipment, which is like your TV, your speakers and such. And then area 2, which is a small area, as kind of like a study area. So this is the two bits. This is the length of it, so it's 11 metres long by 3.2 metres, so it's quite a fair size. The only thing to bear in mind that as it's a conversion of an upstairs, you don't get the full height. You have the height, you have the ceiling in the middle and then two slants either side. However, it's a very useful room to have. So back in 2005 we basically stripped everything out. This is the wall, or would be. We basically took it all out. This is the thing that supports the roof, and for temporary measures we had to actually put supports in. Like I said, I'm going to go over this fairly quickly, because if you want to read it all in detail, I'll put links to those in the description below and you can go through and read it at your own pace. But this is basically a quick overview of stuff. So obviously after we did that, we put these new sort of reinforcement walls. These were structural walls that took the roof directly straight through. After that we did wiring a load of AV stuff. This is all the sockets, TV aerials and stuff like that in area 1 on that main wall. So then after we did all that, it was time to fiberglass it all up, which I hate that stuff. Then we did change the lighting as well in 2005. Before then we had a series of tube lights, I think, on the ceiling. However, they did stick down and you would sometimes get in your way. So the idea then was to change them to the recessed sort of lights you get. Then we had to put in transformers into the ceiling to supply the power for them. After that as well, another thing we wanted to change upstairs is that in an upstairs environment it's always much warmer. So for this sort of problem we decided to put in some sort of air ventilation. This involved putting some grills in area 1, and this would go to a sort of fan that would suck air through from the outside as well, and mix the airs together and blow them into area 2. So we did create the box section, but when we was going to do it we used this kind of a window fan. Later on we found this fan wasn't up to the actual what we wanted. It was basically because this window fan was not designed for high static pressure, and when you start putting all this ducting on it, it puts so much restriction on the fan it couldn't actually pull enough air through it. We later did fix the problem by putting a proper fan in. So this was all the box section. This is that bit of pipe there goes to the grills, and this is the section where the air comes in from the outside and mixes. There is a thing on the top here which shuts and closes a grill or so you can control how much. So after we did all that in 2005 we put down this acoustic flooring. This is to try and stop noise from the upstairs going down to the bedrooms which are underneath here. And then we put in the flooring. So this is area 2. You notice there's a door there. In that area there is a kind of a storage area. This is above our front room. and like I said, it's used for storing stuff. You'll see this later on being emptied and filled up because it's where I store some stuff. Yeah, we also did some speaker plates, which are basically for taking the speakers left and right, the rear speakers essentially, without having to put a load of cables everywhere. We also did a double version. This is used at the front or the back of the AV thing. This double one has, obviously, as you can see, it's got three. It's got the left and right speakers on either side, and then the centre in the middle. Later on, I didn't really use this plate because the AV equipment is very close to the front anyway, so it's only a matter of running the cable there, instead of running the cable up to there and then the cable off the wall. So this was kind of how things looked pretty much up 2005. I did have all the speakers then, but I didn't have my big screen then because I was reviewing what was going on with the screens and that, and at that point it was very expensive to get a 32-inch screen, which is what I kind of got afterwards. I think it cost about £2,000 or something. But obviously that was back then where TFTs and all that lot and LCDs were much more expensive. And we also did create the AV stand, and we stacked all the stuff up. So this is a receiver on the top. This basically takes in all the signals from other devices like a PlayStation, a PC, your recorder, things like that, and it splits out the audio to the speakers and it puts the video to a screen. Later on, the video section didn't get used, but anyway. The next unit underneath is a power amp. This does the sound for the left and right speakers only. The sound for the centre and the rear is done by the receiver. A dedicated power amp is for the left and right. This is for basically stereo, where you need high quality stereo. Then we've got a DVD player, and I think that's a PlayStation 2 there. But bear in mind, this is 2005 era, so yeah, later on in 2016 I did get a bigger telly sorted. But since then, things did change quite a lot. I didn't really document them as such. So after that, it's about 11 years run, roughly 11 years. The existing two windows we had, which was a part of the original install, they started to show quite a lot of damage on them. The wood itself, because they were made of pine, started to kind of rot. As you can see, they've gone kind of black. They also had water between the two sheets of glass because they were double glazed, and somehow water got in between them. I did try and see if you could get water out, but nothing seemed to really work. But with the actual wood being rotten as well, it kind of meant that they needed replacing. We was talking about a third window for quite a long time. We just didn't get round to it. So the original plan was to actually install 3 windows. These were going to be bigger windows, but like I said, it didn't kind of work out like this, but this was the plan. Basically to put nearly twice as much light in, because each window is about 50% bigger and there's an extra one. Things didn't go to plan when we went down to get them. Basically had 2 of them in stock and they didn't really have a third in, so we went back home, tried to work out what we was going to do. When I come up with the idea of doing 4 windows, these were smaller than the 3, and cost they work out about the same price because the larger windows were more expensive. It took me a long time to decide which way to go because both had advantages and disadvantages, but eventually I went for the 4 windows because this window is put up directly below the staircase. We've always had troubles getting light down there, and also that 4 windows gives you more control on the light. So if you have a TV over this side, you can shut the blind off of there but keep the rest open. With 3 windows, if you shut that one blind, it's going to take your light down quite a lot. So this is how things looked before we did any work on the thing, and this is before anything was tidied or anything. This was basically how things went. So this is looking from the other direction. This is area 1 down here, and this bit here is area 2. As you can see, it's got a bit messy, but that does happen, you know, when you live in a place. You do put stuff out. But so on the 30th of May we got a delivery. We got our 4 windows and 4 flashing kits, which were used to install the windows onto the roof. At that point we couldn't really do much because we didn't have much time available, but essentially I wanted to get the windows here and being able to actually see what they look like and know what we're going to get. So after we got the windows, I think it was a couple of days after, or the Monday or whatever, I tidied up that spare room I was on about. Essentially this was an absolute mess before. We had so much stuff in there, you couldn't really put much in there. I wanted to tidy this room up because what I wanted to do is to move all my stuff like my sofa, the TV, stuff like that into this room, so it was away from being all the stuff that was being worked on, because I know that we're going to be doing plasterboarding, fiberglass, stuff like that, and if you've got a sofa in amongst it, it could mess it up. But if it's in this little room, which I suppose is not that small, it would protect it. So we did clear quite a lot of rubbish out. Essentially it ended up filling this car up more or less full. We also had to take another car trip of it because it filled up the house downstairs. But at least it was, I think, at least 2 cars worth of junk in that room. So after we cleared it all, I moved all my stuff in, but this meant basically a nice empty area is now full back up. But I've got things in like the sofa and all that lot. I didn't think I was going to get the sofa in, to be honest, but the more I could get in there, the better. So this is how things looked before we did any work, but the upstairs being cleared. This is area 1 here, that's area 2 down there. As you can see, there is kind of a lack of light in the middle. You can see this sort of light spot on the floor. There's one here and one here. And this area here, there isn't a lot there. I do have a video showing that, which is in here. So as you can see, there is kind of a bit of a black spot between the 2 windows. The 4 windows we will be doing, each one is slightly larger than these ones. Not by much, but by a little bit. So this is the staircase. This is where we struggle to get any light, which is not a nice thing when you come into the property and basically you see a load of dark area. Like I said, if I'm going too fast with this, I will post the link in the description below so you can go through and read this at your own pace and look at the pictures. Like I said, I kind of want to skim over it a bit because this could be quite a long video otherwise. So on the first day we got, my dad actually took 2 weeks off, so this is why I counted it as day 1, 2 as such. The first day was basically to strip the upstairs. We were going to keep this wall, this one alone. This one was going to stay, but the idea was to take this wall off, all the plasterboard essentially, and take the ceiling off. I wanted to change the lighting as well because in 2005 we put halogen lights in. These halogens used 50 watts each, and over about 20 odd lights, this meant it used quite a lot of power. Also halogen gets rather hot, and being in a roof space is not ideal. So the plan was to change these to LEDs and to change the 50 watts to 5 watt bulbs. These produce much less heat. They're also a hell of a lot more efficient. But with this side being removed, it wasn't that much more to remove this ceiling, and so we could correct the lighting. So basically the first day we was basically taking most of the fibre, taking the plasterboard off the wall, as you can see down here. So the second day we kind of carried on taking more of the plasterboard off. This time we actually took a bit off to the ceiling as well. We had to be very careful not to damage this plasterboard. We also removed all the horrible fiberglass as well in that side. I kind of really hate fiberglass because it always makes you itch. It's also not a particularly nice material. I don't think it's particularly great for your health, but it's not that serious. So by day 3 we was actually starting to work on the actual windows themselves. The first day we actually attempted to do the first window. We knew this was going to be more painful because it was the first one. We didn't exactly know what we was doing. Like I said, it didn't get fully done on the first day, so it had to be covered in case it rains, but this was very temporary. So by day 4 we were starting to try and get the first window in, finishing the opening. And we also, like I said, had to take a lot of tiles off. But by the end of this day we managed to actually get the window installed. So this is how the two windows looked from the external. This is the existing window, or the old windows, how it was put in from the outside. This was kind of lead that was sort of used to insulate it against the rain. However, this is the new window, which is doesn't use that, and it's much more in part of the roof. To me it looks a lot better, and this is how it looked on the inside. So day 5 I started making the third opening essentially, or the second window in. This was the window directly above the staircase. So by then, like I said, the next day I actually took quite a bit more out of it. Actually got some more tiles, and this was the first day that we actually saw some more light. First time we've ever seen light come down the staircase like that. So this is how things looked with the 3 openings. So this is the existing window, which I don't know if you can tell in the video that it had water between the 2 layers. This is the new opening. Which, like I said, it lights straight down the staircase. And this is the new window, first new window we've put in. We did more or less get that window finished on that day. There was some stuff to be finished up here on the roof, but we did get the window in. So by now we had 2 windows in. So day 7, my dad had to fix a few problems with the first window and correct something with the second. So I moved on to making the next opening, the third opening. This was in area 1. Day 8 it started to rain a bit, so we had to come up with a kind of temporary cover. It turned out the cover wasn't that useful on day 8 because it wasn't raining that much. Later on it did rain quite a lot on, I think, day 9 or 10, so that we actually used the cover quite a lot. But it wasn't particularly a productive day. As you can see, we've got the window framing at least. I think by day 9 it did start to sort of really rain. But we managed to get the third window in, so we had 3 windows installed now. We did start looking at the 4th window, but we didn't really get much time to finish it. So on day 10 we carried on with the fourth window, and we managed to basically get all 4 windows installed from the outside at least. So this is me going up the staircase, showing you the light that's coming down from the second window. This is the one just directly above the staircase. This is area 2 with its window on the left. As you can see, things are a bit of a mess. So as you can see now that the big lack of light in the middle has gone, we've now got a good coverage of light everywhere. It was something, like I said, I was hoping was going to actually happen, and it did. So basically day 11 we had to actually start doing the internal stuff. For this we had to get some insulation material. This stuff is a lot better than fiberglass, but it's still messy. It took a long time to install because the way you had to cut it all up. So 12 we did quite a bit more. As you can see, it's as you've got to kind of cut it into little sections and slot it in. With fiberglass you can kind of push it in and it goes in. This did take a long time to actually get it all done. Eventually we did. On that day we did have a look outside and to have a look at the windows from the external. This is all 4 obviously installed. As you can see, there's a few different new tiles around the windows. Given a bit of time, the colour on them tiles will dissipate and it will kind of blend in together. This is because we had to put some new tiles around the windows. But to me that looks a lot better than it did on the original windows. As you can see, the arrow's probably not quite straight, but anyway. So day 13 we got some plasterboard to basically push the insulation material up and keep it there, but we didn't get round to doing much. We did start having a look into the lighting and to see if our dimmer we had was going to cope with it all. After that we didn't have that much time. So the next day we carried on putting some more insulation material in. This stuff did keep falling out every so often, so we did actually put some tape in to try and hold it up. I think that made sense. And we did get a first bit of plasterboard in on the one window. The next day we carried on with a bit more plasterboard, so when we got it down to kind of the second window. Day 16 we got it a bit more further down. So this is how things looked after 16 days. So as you can see, we got quite a bit of plasterboard on. This is the first window in area 1. As you can see, it's been raining. So this is the second window in area 1. This next window is more or less directly above the staircase, which is the throwing much needed light down the staircase. And then finally our fourth window in area 2, which is Alright, so after that, my dad didn't have much time left on his holiday. He basically used a lot up, so we didn't have much time. So now the project had to change from being done daily to being done in the evenings and weekends. Obviously this did slow things down massively, but however we did manage to carry on. By the first weekend, the 23rd of June, we did get the remaining plasterboard finished on the wall. I'm not too sure what you call that. It's not really a wall, is it? That's kind of the wall down there, but anyway. I think that was the Saturday, so on the Sunday we did start putting the electrics up for the lights. This is something we're going to pick up later, but these will need to be done at this stage so we can get the lights in later before we put the actual ceiling up. But before we did that, we wanted to check to make sure all the lights were working. After we put the ceiling up, it's going to be much more awkward to check anything. We're going to be, if there's any serious problems though, it may even involve the ceiling coming down. So it was worth checking to make sure everything worked. At this stage, we didn't know the dimmer was going to work with all the lights, so it was another good check. After we did all that and it was all successful, what we did is do a little plan. We wanted to know where all the lights go after we've put all the plasterboard up and painted everything. So this is where we drew a little plan. As you can see, there is 4 sets of lights in area 2, and there's 7 sets of lights in area 1, with the grill at the far edge. There are another set of lights more or less above the staircase. These are not kind of central because of how it worked out with the joists, but there's basically 2 sets of lights now. We have this set of lights and this set. Originally in 2005 there was 4 sets of lights, because these halogens use so much electricity. These were split into 2 banks, so we had 2 banks there and they went onto that dimmer, and then we had a second dimmer over here for these 2 banks. But changing them to LED, we no longer needed that. We could just change it to 2 banks. So we started putting the ceiling up after that. Something else I wanted to change is that we had a series of fans up high up here. These fans are small fans that are used just to get heat out of the room, but it turned out they weren't very useful, and instead of using them I used the bigger fan that was part of the air duct system we've got installed. So I wanted to remove them essentially. So we actually did get them removed. That's it, covered with plasterboard, and that's the electrics for it, so they were covered over and disconnected, of course. So after all that was done, it was time to get the area prepared for plastering. Plastering is going to be very, very messy. Essentially you don't want to do it with a good floor down. You want to do it when you've got a kind of rough floor down, because then you'll be putting a new floor on top. However, we couldn't really take this floor up. It would be too much work, so my idea was to cover it to protect it from any mess. To do this I was going to use dust sheets, and tape them onto the wall and then drag them down onto the floor. On top of that I would put some of the cardboard from the windows that we didn't need anymore. Hopefully this would protect the floor. So we went ahead after that on the weekend, and actually the next weekend, and carried on doing plastering. As you can see, here is all the dust sheets I've got up, and this is all the plaster which is drying. However, plastering wasn't quite finished on the weekend, and I think it needed the Monday night also. However, by then it was finished, and this is how things looked after all the plastering had been done. So as you can see, the plaster is a bit messy. This is area 1. And this is looking across to area 2. As you notice the state of the floor, it's a bit of a mess, so that's why I had all these dust sheets and cardboard down. Essentially we were basically going to throw this lot of cardboard away and the dust sheets. These were just purely to protect the floor. I don't know if you can quite see how messy that was. But essentially with the plastering done, that's the kind of very messy stage done. So essentially with all the plastering done, my dad could then actually kind of hand the project over to me, more or less, because I was going to carry on my own with it, more or less. During this sort of stage of doing this, I was looking at this paint thinking it may pose a bit of a problem. The paint has a little bit of a depth to it, and when you're trying to join it onto plaster and that, it could leave a little bit of a ridge, and after when you paint it finally, it may leave a sort of indent of where it was. So what I wanted to do is actually remove all this paint and get it all back to plaster all over. This took a long time to do. This definitely took a couple of days to do. After all that, I felt it was a better way of doing it. As you can see here, all the paint's been removed, all the existing paint. The paint was a Magnolia before, so there was still little parts on it. At this stage also that the electrics was disabled, so now there was no power upstairs. None of these sockets worked. As you can see there's a cable coming up. I think it's shown better in another picture later. But essentially this provided power to the upstairs. We had to do this because our internet comes up here and also our TV splitter. So without them power we wouldn't have TV or internet downstairs. So after all that, I had to fill it all. As you can see, there was quite a lot of filler being used. The idea was to try to do a lot of filler so it didn't need to be done a second and third time. Unfortunately it was actually other applications of filler, but essentially I did what I could. As you notice there's a fan there because basically it was getting pretty hot at this stage. This week I wasn't particularly that great. We had to go and get the new paint we was going to get, so that was half the day. Tuesday just got too hot. Up here it got up to 36 degrees. The Wednesday it was a bit cooler, but it still slowed things down, and then on Thursday I had to go to a driving lesson, which meant that I couldn't really cover myself up with too much dust or muck or so, because I was working at that stage on the painting, well not painting, the filling and sanding down stuff. So after a few days, on the 25th of July, I did the first coat of white paint. This made things look a lot more finished. You can see here, as I was talking about the electrics there, this is the power coming from downstairs. So to provide some power over here so we can use the hoover, a fan essentially, and another one over this way to supply the internet and our TV splitter. So after I got all the painting done, which did take quite a few days, we installed all the lights. So as you see it looks much better. With the painting done, obviously the electrics could go back on, and like I said, we had power up here again. It was kind of sad in a way not to have power upstairs, because it felt kind of like a vacant sort of building, if you know what I mean. If you notice in this picture there's a set of lights not on. This is because these lights are to do with the staircase, and this time these set and this setup here are to do with our dimmer over here. This dimmer here controls this set of lights, so this is for getting up and down the staircase. So after a lot more painting and topping up and cutting in and stuff like that, I did actually have to put some more filler about. I eventually moved in. This was about 8 weeks I was away from this room. So on the Wednesday, 3rd of August, I managed to more or less move back upstairs in a sort of temporary form. I kind of had the two areas separate. I mean, the first area had the TV in, my AV equipment, and the second area got my computer in, but not everything was completed. In this idea, what I'm trying to do is have the computer kind of in the middle, and it's sending a signal out to the TV and also over here, so I can actually use the computer in two different positions. Currently kind of sorting things out with that. I've got most of the things done for that. As you can see in this picture, we no longer have that dark bit in the middle. We have light kind of pretty much across the whole room now. Like I said, it's going to take time to be fully moved in, but essentially I'm basically back upstairs now. Yeah, so it's took around about 8 weeks to do. It's been quite exhausting. The heat hasn't helped in sometimes, and like I said, it's yes, it's been a big improvement, and I've managed to sort out some of the things that were niggling me. Anyway guys, hopefully guys, that's explained the upstairs project and what's been going on. Like I said, you've probably seen me posting about it and maybe not been too sure what's been going on. Like I said, if you do want to read the full guide and read it at your own pace, I will post links in the description below. Like I said, there is a lot of information, and even going through it at this speed, this video has turned out probably quite longish. But you may want to just look through it at your own pace. This video should give you a sort of overall what's happened. I did feel like it was a good idea to look at 2005 to give a bit more of a bearing on things. Yeah, I'm not too sure. So guys, well, I guess that's about it. Thanks guys for watching. The only thing I wanted to, I just remembered, is that I was kind of trying to think of a way of doing this video, and I think it was kind of the easiest and probably the best way to do it was just using my site, because it was all put together on there. Anyway guys, hopefully that's explained a few things. If you've got any comments or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Like and subscribe always helps me. Thanks guys for watching. Take care and have fun out there.